point or you can't argue another idea or whatever. I'm not saying that I can't be questioned, okay? Obviously, that's not what I think. That's not what I feel. But I think...
Playing, let's get...
Hey, everyone. Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it is time for another edition of Let's Argue, where your boy, the actual best teeth in the game, goes online, hits up social media, accepts your hot takes, unpopular opinions, and tough questions, and responds to the best ones. Let's go. Modern video game and movie soundtracks are less memorable than in the past because in trying to do more to heighten moods, they've gotten generic. Well, that's because a lot of video game soundtracks these days are running for video games that essentially vibe and play like movies. It's like you're not even really playing much of a game at all, but just sort of interacting with a piece of cinema. And it's not like it was back in the day where composers that had to work within an 8-bit or a 16-bit mainframe essentially had to do their best compositionally within the very limited means that they had to create music for this game. So yeah, maybe things like compositional quality have fallen to the wayside a little bit as things like sound quality have increased in the video game world. However, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It opens the way for things like the Minecraft soundtrack, which compositionally isn't the most memorable thing in the world, but as far as like ambient music goes, music that sets a mood, it's pretty beautiful, and I think it's very effective. And also the wider array of sounds and instrumentation you can now pack into video game soundtracks opens up the floodgates for something like the Cuphead soundtrack. So while we may not be getting a lot of game soundtracks out there that have the compositional genius of Super Mario Brothers, I do still think a lot of modern soundtracks out there are creative in their own right and are doing what they can with modern technology. Chocolate Rain is a better social commentary than This Is America. I do think Chocolate Rain does get to the heart of some pretty significant issues in terms of injustice and imbalance in our criminal justice system and so on and so forth. But if you're rating something or critiquing something based on the social commentary itself, I feel like the effect or the impact of that social commentary should be taken into account. And while I do think that Chocolate Rain, again, does address some important issues, I mean, basically, when the song got hot, literally no one listening to that track was actually taking the message, the real message of that song, away from the song. And even Tay himself just pretty much embraced the meme of the track. Like, he wasn't exactly sounding the alarm and freaking out and being like, you guys, you don't get it. I mean, he's obviously done his best to explain the point of the track, but, you know, it didn't really stop people from laughing at it, unfortunately. So I do kind of feel like This Is America is the more effective piece of social commentary in that I feel like its message was felt, it was heard, people understood what the message was when they listened to it, whereas with Tay, I think that was more difficult. Denzel Curry needs to make a metal album. Well, I mean, after his Bulls on Parade cover, I think it's been shown that he could definitely hold his own in a metal studio if he had to do that. And I think it's also worth noting that Denzel Curry definitely brings a metal attitude to the trap genre with his latest record, the very dark lyricism and themes and instrumentals throughout that LP. Shut up and enjoy the music from Hot Music Takes. It's obviously a bit of a troll post, but I do think this is one of the dumber and most annoying sentiments that I, as someone who makes a living doing commentary on music, hears repeatedly. What would you rather? People not really think about why they enjoy what they enjoy, or why it's good, or why it's bad? Good or bad, musicians typically put a lot of heart and energy and soul into the records that they put out. And honestly, in my conversations,
are you serious?
My interviews
with
multiple musicians over the years from across the popular music
spectrum,
they typically appreciate when fans and people who love their stuff put a bit more thought and even have conversations about what exactly makes their record tick, because it shows people are actually paying attention and they're not just passively enjoying whatever it is they put out because it's popular or it fits within a particular trend of whatever they're doing or making or whatever. Also, these two things are not mutually exclusive. You can enjoy the music and also talk about the music. Shutting up doesn't really mean you're enjoying the music any more than you would be if you were having a conversation about it. Actually, I would argue the exact opposite, because when people get together and have conversations about what makes art great,
Oh, they're not having
validate
fun.
each other's experiences and interpretations.
You have a challenger jungler,
People
apparently.
get to the
I
heart
don't know
of
how
what
he killed
actually makes
Malzahar.
certain songs and albums work and what makes them profound and what makes them resonate. So yeah, I think having discussions about music among people who enjoy a particular artist or song or album actually facilitates more understanding
he didn't hold on
and
to it.
enjoyment.
Should've held
2D
on to
tries
it.
way too hard to sound like Damon Albarn. John Darnielle of the Mountain Goats deserves a Pulitzer. I mean, if you're giving him out to Bob Dylan, you gotta give one to John. Dude is a hell of a storyteller, very imaginative. I can't really think of a songwriter over the course of popular music that has covered as many stories and topics and angles and themes as John has. Everything from like snack peanuts to Roman history to pro wrestling. I mean, the dude
Well,
is
you
all
didn't
over
have to
the
go
place.
back
The
by,
Mollusk
because
is
it
one of the
hung
most
out with me.
influential albums of our generation due to its direct influence on the creation of SpongeBob. It's not a stretch to say that one of the biggest pieces of pop culture would be radically different without the influence and collaboration of Ween. So what you're saying is that Ween should be getting residuals off of the billions of dollars of revenue that SpongeBob has generated over the years, and I fully agree. YouTube is destined for
RT.
another adpocalypse. Well, with this recent story, I'm maybe a little less worried because it seemed like the platform did what they could quicker than they have in the past when these issues have come up. But I do think this is the kind of thing that's going to happen when you allow anybody and everybody to upload and put content onto your platform.
69.
You know, it's not that YouTube should not allow that to happen. That's obviously the beauty and the function of the platform itself. But Google has quite a bit of money, and I think they could be doing better
What?
to filter through the content
What?
that is placed up
What is he
on their
asking?
platform and scan for certain keywords and images and themes. Regardless, though, I think the best way of YouTube trying to avoid such a thing as an adpocalypse in the future, and I think they have made steps to do this, is that don't just hand over monetization rights to anybody who starts a friggin' channel. At that point, you're basically guaranteeing an ad is going to run on something that's going to get you in trouble. Back in the day when there was an actual partner system and YouTube invested more in terms of time and money and exposure to actual creators with a proven track record, it seemed like these things weren't as much of a problem. It's a very difficult and complex
Not enough
situation,
mana
and I
for
do not
one
envy
spell.
anybody at YouTube who has been given the task to figure out how to fix it. But what I do know, as long as YouTube shares a majority of the video market share on the internet, as long as they have the tons of money that Google has to back the site, adpocalypse or no adpocalypse, the website, the platform, it's still going to be here.
And a
Will it
flow
be here in a
stack.
capacity that hurts or helps creators do what they got to do? I'm not entirely sure. Can we just take a moment and stop arguing? Rolly. Okay, proceed. That was a lovely break. Super Mario 64 soundtrack revolutionized country music. Why was that song playing while you were like racing down an ice tunnel with a friggin' penguin? It's not a very country scenario. 6ix9ine is a good role model for the children. I mean, he certainly sets a good example in that, hey, if you do this stupid stuff, you're gonna go to court and get caught by the cops, and people are gonna expose you to be a rat. Singing Frank Sinatra's My Way at a karaoke bar should result in an immediate ban from the premise, and possibly also life in prison. Yeah, My Way is a pretty uncreative karaoke pick, and also most people are not gonna have the vocal chops to sing that Frank Sinatra song. I mean, if you're gonna pull from that Rat Pack era, you could do a Perry Como track, you could do a Dean Martin, you could do a Sammy Davis Jr. I mean, there are lots of great songs from that era of vocal jazz. Yeah, I don't know if it should result in an immediate ban or anything like that. It's just a very uncreative pick, okay? It's an uncreative pick. I personally think Sammy Davis's I Gotta Be Me is much better. I gotta be me. Fortnite could have gotten a better artist than Marshmello to play the virtual concert. Also, it wasn't the first virtual concert that took place in Second Life. Yeah, I think they definitely could have gotten someone better than Marshmello, but Marshmello's kind of that DJ right now when it comes to, hey, I'm quirky and I make fun dancey tracks and I got a crazy helmet. I got a crazy helmet. And that's going to appeal to Fortnite players. Drake is two boys in a Drake costume. That's true. And don't you dare ever talk to my son again. That's a bad application of that meme. But this is a horrible tweet, so who cares? Your glasses are fake and you wear them for aesthetic reasons. Does this work? Does this do anything? Yeah, I don't think you would have this effect if these were not
It wasn't blocked by his shield.
I'm not exactly sure how else I would prove it to you.
So I don't know how it didn't go through there. That was weird.
My left eye,
there's no way his ult has a bigger range than exhaust. That's just stupid.
The other one is like a -2.25 or -250. My pupillary distance is like about 71 or 72 millimeters or so. Because whenever I'm buying glasses, I'm buying them online. I would not fake the glasses funk, okay? And I'm actually considering maybe one day I should get the LASIK surgery and just be done with glasses altogether. And I'm going to leave it at that. This has been another episode of Let's Argue. Thank you very much for watching.
LASIK,
hope y'all are well.
This whole thing.
Best. Over here next to my head is another Argue that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano. Argue, argue, argue forever.
Wow, that was scuffed.
La 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 la
He does have a little back for a sec.
Hi everyone, Teeth Tano here, the best teeth in the game and the internet's busiest music nerd. And it's time for another edition of Let's Argue, where I go on the internet, I accept your hot takes, your unpopular opinions, and your tough questions, and I respond to the best ones, literally right now in this video. Let's go. Thank You Next isn't a personal album, it's overwhelmingly self-centered. Personally, I don't really get how tracks like Needy and Fake Smile and Thank You Next are more self-centered than they are personal or introspective. Where exactly is the line between personal and self-centered? I mean, to me, a self-centered person
what? There's a
would
Lux
build
in this
themselves
game?
up as being like,
Oh my gosh.
great,
He pulled her out of the W.
and amazing in every way. Whereas Ariana Grande
That
actually
was a
comes
pretty
off
good
very
move by
flawed
Trish,
on this
that.
record and kind of like a mess of a person.
kinda
Kind
want
of
more
like she's
treads. I
not
think I
really
need more
holding it
treads.
together at all, and that's what many songwriters have written albums about over the years. Honestly,
They have
I
a
think the
Lux
most
in it.
self-centered
That's the
track of the
weird
entire
skin,
record
so I
is
didn't know what the
probably
key
Break Up
was.
With Your Girlfriend, I'm Bored, but that song is obviously pretty self-aware. So, I don't know. I'm not saying Thank You Next is like the most amazing album I've ever heard, but there
I don't know why
is some
Twitch isn't
emotional
getting
depth
mid.
to it. And I feel like because it's a pop record and because it's Ariana Grande, you're just really to dismiss that. Experimental is not a genre. Experimental music is already very well established as an art form, as a mode of expression, as a label for a music genre or a concept for a style of music. At least it, in a way, describes what's actually going on in the music. Some genre labels don't even do that. So, I don't know, man. I feel like as far as the sensibility or the accuracy of a name for a genre, you could certainly do worse than experimental, or experimental rock, or experimental jazz. I can stock Fantano's Pac-Man. Look, if you played Smash Ultimate or Smash 4 for real, then you know you don't need 4 stocks, you only need 3, and you think 4 because you play the game like a baby. You probably leave Pokeballs on and everything. Give us your scalp care routine. First, I start off every morning by listening to 3 Death Grip songs assigned to me by the shuffle feature on whatever music program I'm listening to. The songs through. These songs are chosen through the group's entire discography. Then after that, it's a 30-minute head rub from one person who is assigned to a particular day, one day every week. It's a constant rotation of James Blake, Robin Pecknold, Slater, Little B, Post Malone, Father John Misty, and Princess Vitara. Then after that, for at least an hour, I just blast the top of my head with like
Christmas
like
lights
UV
already.
light, just direct UV rays onto my scalp. I then give it a once over with a Clorox bleach wipe, which eliminates 99.9% of all germs. Give it a quick blow dry, and that's essentially my scalp care routine. Takeoff is the best Migo. Well, Takeoff was not the one that was on With
Why
that was
did it
Offset.
walk in front of the fucking thing?
So in my opinion, that is the best Migo. But he cheated on Cardi, so it's actually Quavo because he has the most recognizable voice. Kid Cudi is more harmful to Kids See Ghosts than he is beneficial. His vocals and lyrics don't fit at all compared to Kanye's genius wordplay and rhyming. Look, I mean, the song Reborn completely invalidates anything that you just said there. Life is meaningless. I mean, of course, the meaning of life for most sentient beings out there, and even non-sentient, is just to survive. However, many of us in the first world have been blessed with the privilege to live in a place where we're not worrying necessarily every waking moment about whether or not we're going to be alive in the next 24 hours or where our next meal is coming from. So unfortunately, this gives a lot of people a void because they don't have to worry about surviving. So now they're just sitting there like, what is the point of life? What is the point? What's the point of it? Well, I mean,
Can't believe you
life
got old
is
after
really
all
kind
that.
of what you make it. The meaning of it is what you mean it to be, I guess. You know, it's really whatever you get out of it. Life is literally a fucking choose your own adventure, okay? Option on some game that you're playing, and you're just literally choosing your own adventure. So there you go. It's like Minecraft, but you can do way more stuff than mine and craft. The more units sold, the better the music. I only listen to gold/platinum selling artists. Your music is whack if it ain't got a plaque. Most likely a troll opinion, but I'll bite anyway. If everybody thought this way, then literally no artist ever would get popular, because according to you, an artist would have to have sold platinum records in order to be worth your time in the first place. And if nobody takes that chance and listens to a more obscure artist, or just listens to something not because it has a plaque, but because they like it, then how is anything ever going to go gold, or go platinum, or gain any popularity whatsoever? Because all popular artists are struggling and just starting out at some point. And even platinum selling artists, when they put out a new record, the sales start at zero. Unless you're Jay-Z and you can get a multinational corporation to buy 1 million copies of your record right out of the gate. That's the only major exception. Albums/songs with all caps or lowercase only titles are overdone and therefore lost any meaning they used to maybe have. Yeah, I think the all caps thing is kind of sickening at this point. However, I still do think the lowercase thing does have a bit of gas in the tank, because I still think there is something to be said for, I guess, understating some things. You're being too critical of the premise of Yesterday. It's just trying to be a fun movie, chill out melon. Look, I'm sure Yesterday is going to be a kind of fun film, and really the point at the end of the day is to have this protagonist who seems like a pretty talented guy, just kind of, riff on these Beatles songs throughout the movie and just kind of recontextualize these tracks that everybody has loved over the years. That's really what the movie's truly going to be about. It'll do that element of the storyline pretty well, and as a result, most of them will walk away from the movie relatively pleased. But as a story and as a premise from the outset, it just seems kind of half-assed. Because, I don't know, I think you could potentially make a really cool movie about what would happen if the Beatles never existed, but what you would have to do if you were going to make a legitimately intriguing film about that is try to reimagine the whole landscape of popular culture and uproot everything the Beatles have influenced over the years. That takes a lot of imagination, and that's really tough. Look, it's going to be a fun movie, but I can critique the goddamn premise, okay? Modern rap relies too much on punchlines and puns rather than lyrics about deep and meaningful subjects. The lyrics of something don't need to be deep and meaningful, okay? I mean, that's the exact reason that John Lennon wrote songs that had silly, absurd, dumb, pointless lyrics in them, because he thought that over the years, too many critics and hardcore fans were analyzing what he was saying in the songs that he was writing far too much. And that's what he and many other songwriters have engaged in over the years, trying to subvert this expectation that the song or the lyrics have to have a certain kind of meaning or story that's super clear. So don't put this ridiculously arbitrary expectation on rap music to be deeper than it currently is, or as deep as what you think every other genre is, I guess. After Mass Seduction, St. Vincent fans have begun to sound like Lana Del Rey fans. I don't see what you are meaning with the words that you are typing. Like, how do Lana Del Rey fans sound? And what characteristics about them do you find similar to St. Vincent fans? I don't get it. I don't know. Foo Fighters' success is 40% Dave Grohl's charisma, 50% Dave Grohl's Nirvana.
I don't have enough mana to alt side to Q instead.
I don't know, man. Those first several Foo Fighters records are pretty solid alternative rock albums. Are we, like, supposed to expect artists that start in one band, as soon as that band crumbles or something awful happens that stops that band from existing, they just have to, like, you know, fall into obscurity because it would be wrong of them to continue their success into another group or something? Tidal hurt Jay-Z's legacy. I mean, Tidal's probably not the best business move that Jay-Z's ever come out with. Yes. And there have been some pretty shady news stories surrounding the streaming service that have come out over the past few years or so. However, I don't know, Tidal is still around. I mean, it seems like it's staying afloat, and I feel like ultimately more competition in the music streaming market is better than less. At least Tidal is providing a little bit of an alternative to the usual Apple Music, Spotify run of things. As a music streaming platform, it seems to function pretty decently. By music streaming standards, it pays the artist on the platform more than any other out there does, from my understanding currently. I just think the rollout could have been a lot better, and I think Jay-Z thought that the celebrity power of all of the main brains of Tidal were going to be a bigger selling point than it actually was. How do you invite chaos in this way without experiencing intense anxiety? I don't know, I'm not exactly one to shy away from a back and forth, even with somebody whose brain is essentially a brick wall and is completely unwilling to listen to another perspective or point of view. Because ultimately, I think stirring the pot and getting ideas out there and starting conversations is important. Of course, there are always going to be people out there who say negative stuff and attack you and poke at sore spots, but if you're doing what you do well, it most likely is speaking to somebody, and the people that care about it the most, many of them honestly are just reacting to what you're doing very pleasantly.
I really won the jungler lottery this game.
You know, they're having an introspective moment with it, and you know, they're just kind of silently showing their support for what you do. And if people really care about what you do, of course there's going to be very vocal individuals out there who stand for you and so on and so forth, and you know, you can't forget about them or let the negativity of some individuals blind you from the positivity that some people throw at you. And I think I am going to leave it at that. You guys are the best. This has been another episode of Let's Argue. Over here next to my head is another one that you can check out. Hit that up, or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, argue, argue, argue forever.
You guys think I should be worried about their healing?
Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Hope you're doing well, and it's time for another edition of the best team in the game. No, really, Let's Argue, where I go on social media, I accept your hot takes, your unpopular opinions, and your tough questions. I respond to the best ones, literally in this video. Let's go! Does anyone actually listen to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, or do we all just collectively say, wow, I like the Red Hot Chili Peppers? Honestly, I mean, I do look back on the band's music nostalgically, the stuff that was most popular when I was younger and that I had tapes of. You know, I do love Sex Magic. I do think One Hot Minute is pretty good and maybe a tad bit underrated. Some of their stuff they dropped while I was more in my high school and college years, I don't care for as much. And while I do mostly have a positive perception of the band, it has been years since I think, for pleasure, I've listened to a Red Hot Chili Peppers album from front to back. Honestly, I think Red Hot Chili Peppers is just like this omnipresent band that is super popular, and of course they have hardcore fans out there that listen to their shit repetitively and religiously. I don't think their albums would do as well as they do numerically speaking if that wasn't the case. But also, I think the band is pretty versatile and has a little bit of something for everybody across their discography, and because of that, I think most people have like at least one or two Red Hot Chili Pepper songs that they really like or think are really cool and catchy or funky. So as a result, I think there are just a lot of people out there who will generally say they like the Red Hot Chili Peppers, just like I think there are a lot of people out there who will say they just generally like the Foo Fighters, because, you know, Dave Grohl and his boys, they at least have a few tracks that everybody thinks are fun or catchy too. Louis Armstrong is the origin of mumble rap. And if we're going to get this loose with the origins of mumble rap, we could literally trace the origins of mumble rap back to the first time someone mumbled, which why don't we do that? That's probably really the origin of mumble rap. Modest Mouse is the first hick emo band. That kind of reminds me of Casey Musgraves. Didn't she refer to herself or her music as like emo yeehaw or something? Too many people ask, who's the best teeth in the game? Not enough ask, how is the best teeth in the game? I'm doing terrible. What kind of toothpaste do you use? You know, I'm not like stuck on any one brand right now. I don't have any kind of toothpaste brand loyalty going on at the moment, but right now I'm trying this Colgate Optic White toothpaste, and I guess it's okay. It's not blowing me away or anything. The ratings on Destiny Child's discography on Rate Your Music are a travesty, considering it's all some of the best contemporary R&B and pop music of the 2000s. Yeah, this is absolutely true. Survivor is a great album. Survivor and Independent
So it canceled my ult, but the cooldown didn't go.
Here's the thing about Rate Your Music. I think it's a good platform, and I think it's a good tool, but if anything sort of holds the whole thing back, it's the user base, because for the most part, the tastes and the trends on there lean very raucous, they lean very male, and unfortunately because of that, a lot of pop music, a lot of music that is created by female musicians or appeals to more of a female audience.
It's not long enough of a stun yet that I can walk away and see if
as lavishly
I should
praised,
turn on.
and even the new Ariana Grande record, for as good as it
it'll break out
is,
most of the time.
the success that it's seen and the dominance that it has had in the pop sphere is pretty mediocrely rated. And look, I get that not everybody is going to like everything, and I think guys who are fans of rock music and think Radiohead's OK Computer is the greatest album of all time, like, they certainly deserve a platform, and they are entitled to their opinion, and they are well within their right to, you know, crap on some pop album if they don't like it and jerk off to some Tom York solo project if they love it. Everybody has biases. Everybody's entitled to those biases. You guys know, after years of watching me, there are certain artists and tastes and trends and styles of music that just don't really appeal to me all that much. And I think the only solution for this situation truly is for more pop and R&B fans to get involved in platforms like Rate Your Music, because Survivor and Writings on the Wall are actually really good albums that are pretty influential. Like, I think a lot of the contemporary alternative R&B that we currently all beat off to wouldn't be here if not for hitmakers like Destiny's Child. And you could even argue that they had direct influence on artists like Dirty Projectors. I think they very much pull a lot of their vocal harmony ideas from a lot of
Why would you ever go Glitch Band?
You won't review Doja Cat's music because her bars aren't.
I mean, I guess if you really need CDR in there, remove all the other CDR items.
The Bitch I'm a Cow track. I do think that song is pretty funny, although I'm not too crazy about it. Honestly, I thought her last album was kind of underwhelming. It just didn't really do all that much for me. However, that new single that she has with Rico Nasty, the Tia and Tamara track, is amazing. That song is hilarious. A lot of personality. I mean, I've known her through sort of interacting with her online for her to be kind of
literally sent me backwards. I could have just walked around.
Personality, and I'm looking forward to seeing that come out in her music more. I think through Bitch I'm a Cow, I think through this new track with Rico Nasty, we're starting to hear that more, and I'm looking forward to, you know, sort of seeing the next evolution of that. Eric Andre should make music. Eric Andre has made music. He made like a very weird, bad industrial rap mixtape that sounds like a comedic version of like a Death Grips record. It exists. I actually just learned about it not too long ago. Latin American music is getting worse because it's trying to be more like trap. And that's unfortunately kind of like most things at the moment. Just it's all trying to sound like trap music because that's the zeitgeist right now. And in Latin American music, I mean, A lot of it's very good, and I love a lot of original and traditional Latin American music, but the thing is, like, many international genres, for artists to really make a killing on sales and streams and on the charts, not only do you need to be appealing to Latin American audiences, but you also need like some crossover into North America too. And obviously there are Latin American listeners in North America, but you know what I'm saying. Like, they basically need to cross over into the US's mainstream by embracing more mainstream trends over here. And trap has sort of allowed them to do that. With album sales being what they are today, if Fugazi released a new album, it would go to #1 on the Billboard 200. What are the most album sales Fugazi's ever gotten? Looks like their debut record sold 300,000 copies right out of the gate. But look, here's
come on, it took too long. Why did it take so long?
And come out with a new record, and for that album to get #1 on the charts, it would have to be a perfect storm. It would have to be much more than just like the current state of physical album sales not really being that good. You have to account for a majority of the people buying their records back in the day were young music fans who are typically the most passionate about music and the most willing to shell out their money for music, at least historically speaking, before the age of streaming. If Fugazi were to put out a record today, their fan base would be significantly older than it was back in the day, and would those same numbers of people actually come out in droves to buy the new album to the point where it would become #1? Could we get 300,000 records sold right out of the gate of a new Fugazi album in 2019? Most likely no. There's so many factors at play that I don't think you're taking into account. The saturation of music on the internet right now. How would the band fare in the age of streaming? Would college radio support them like they did back in the day? And even if they do, is it as much of an influential factor in 2019 as it was back in the 90s? I can already tell you, no, it's not. I'm sorry to pop your bubble, man, but I just think this is not real. You don't give enough non-human music a chance. Why don't I listen to these socks make music?
Wow.
Ref last episode's claim that rock will be the dominant music of the next decade. If there is one genre that has the necessary drive and underground drive to take over the next main pop sound, it's synthwave. This is the correct take, no need to argue it, just nod and agree. I do think synthwave and even vaporwave do have some very strong underground fan bases that are very passionate about that particular thing. Passion that could catapult those genres and the pioneering artists within them to higher levels of popularity. But I guess I'm skeptical here just because of potential commercial appeal, much like I am when it comes to underground forms of rock music such as emo and their potential popularity. I mean, one, emo has kind of already had its time in the sun as far as mainstream appeal. That already came and went. Meanwhile, synthwave, I mean, honestly, it wasn't really that long ago where there was a bit of a retro 80s synthwave revival in some pop songs that were actually charting and some artists that were doing really well. I feel like those waters were tested once again with the new Muse album, and that album didn't do all that well, despite some of the songs on that record being kind of decent. Despite the exposure that album provided, maybe not the best exposure, but still exposure. Despite the exposure that album provided to some of those retro 80s and synthwave sounds, yeah, it's not like it created a synthwave explosion or anything like that. And I know that some people are going to say, well, Anthony, that's not a true synthwave, that's not what the hardcore fans are listening to. Yes, that's true, but in order to be like mainstream in music and topping the charts and being #1, you need what the hardcore fans are listening to. Yes, that's true, but in order to be like mainstream in music and topping the charts and being #1, you need normies listening to your music, people who are essentially casuals who are out of the loop. And despite how many attempts synthwave music has made at grabbing the brass ring, I really haven't seen it take the internet by storm in the way that it would need to in order to become mainstream. Now, I'm not saying that that would be impossible for synthwave to do, but I think we would need a bit of a musical landscape change in order to set the ground for it. Plus also a larger demand amongst music fans for the nostalgic, dancey, funky, cinematic sounds that synthwave offers. Filthy Frank put the snowball rolling for depression humor in popular culture and is somewhat responsible for emo rap therefore also responsible for this generation widely struggling with emotional issues? Wow, wow, you've made so many presumptions here. Jesus. For as long as, like, there's been internet, there have been places on the internet that have been wildly popular, like 4chan, for example, where depression-style humor reigned supreme. And even before the internet age, things such as dark humor did, like, you know, exist. But here's the thing, you can create art, whether it be movies or music or some style of humor, and if the audience isn't receptive to it because it doesn't speak to their experience, they're not going to take to it. People don't suddenly become depressed because they heard a depressive joke. They hear a depressive joke, and if they do suffer from things like depression, it resonates with them. And these days, people have a lot of stuff to be depressed about. Bad economic outlook for millennials and people younger. Most people are just stuck into jobs that they hate. Most people are really lonely. But hey, let's keep the vibes high on this video, huh? Oatmeal cookies would be 100 times better if they didn't have raisins in them. Nobody in the right mind enjoys raisins that much to put them all over a delicious oatmeal cookie. Screw you. Screw you, asshole. Alright, I'm gonna leave it at that, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you've gotten a lot of enjoyment out of this latest episode of Let's Argue. I'll see you guys in the next one. Over here next to my head is another Let's Argue that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano.
I don't know if this is worth uploading. I didn't do that much cool stuff. I did like the part where I just absolutely fucked that mouse on her. That was a nice damage. There's a part where I made a funny noise, I think. Yeah, whatever, I'll upload it. Thanks for watching.